Hi, I'm Chris Haigh and this is the Fiddle Channel. Today I'm going to give you 10 tips for playing fiddle with a singer. Now, it's something that's probably going to happen to most fiddle players at some point or another. Totally unprepared, they find themselves in a situation sitting with a singer-guitarist or possibly a singer-pianist, and the singer wants you basically to play with them, and no preparation, they've not told you what they're going to do, you just have to get on with it. Now, for some people this is the scariest thing in the world and they haven't a clue what to do. And for me, this is something I've been doing for the great part of my life, and it's something I love doing, and the more unexpected the situation, the better as far as I'm concerned. So I'm going to give you the nightmare scenario where you don't know the person you're going to be playing with, and you don't know what you're going to be playing, and he's not going to tell you, he's just going to start playing. This happens to me quite a lot, and I find it an exciting challenge, but it can be quite terrifying if you're not sure what you're doing. So tip 1 is work out the key for yourself. Now this isn't obvious, so one thing is the first chord of a song is often, but not always, the key. So if you hear this, right, that's as far as we're going to take it, da 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 da. You may have been able to pick that note out yourself. That is actually the key note. If you're not sure if that's the key note, try playing an arpeggio. That tells you that is a D, and it's a D major. So I was able to pick the note by ear and then guess what note it is on here. It might take you several notes, but by just listening and playing a couple of notes you should be able to tell within certainly the first 8 bars what key it's in. And if you are of a nervous disposition, don't start playing until you know what key it's in. Wait as long as you feel that you know what you're doing. But we'll come to that again in a minute. So you may say, well, why not just ask? Some people, let's say this singer-guitarist has booked you for the first time, you were 19th on his list, but he hasn't told you that, he's told you that he really wants to work with you. So you've got to impress him, and if he says into the next number and he's not going to tell you what it is, then you've got to work it out for yourself, what key it's in. If every time you say, what key is it, then he's going to get fed up, and it's boring asking. So see if you can work it out for yourself. You can practice this. If you sit at home with, let's say, iTunes, and you just play a random load of songs, and as soon as the first few bars are played, you try and pick out in your head what is the key, what is the note that it's going to settle on. So if, let's say it is in D, but the melody goes, then feels to me like the note that it's going to end on, or it might be, again, it's going to end on that. Let's have a different key. It's going to go to, which is a B flat, and by playing the arpeggio you can tell that it's a B flat major. If it sounded like this, then it's going to end on that, which is a C, and because we got that note, it's a C minor. So, if you don't know how to work the key out straight away, then just practice it. You've probably never thought about doing this before, but do it deliberately. Whenever you listen to music, just listen and see if you can do it by ear and just by humming what you think the note is, and then with a couple of notes on your fiddle you should be able to corroborate that and tell you what is the actual note and the key. So that's your first tip, work out the key for yourself. Second tip is, as I said before, don't start until you know what you're doing. You may be tempted to want to start straight away as soon as the song starts, but there's absolutely no need to. Waiting for the intro or waiting for the whole first verse before you come in, don't come in till the chorus or halfway through the verse is absolutely fine. It's not going to sound wrong, it's not going to look wrong, providing you look cool, look like you're into it, and look like you know what you're doing. By that time you should know what key it's in, you should have a good idea of the rhythm, and when you do start it should sound okay. Now if you're lucky and you know the chord sequence, the next bit should be easy, because basically we want to be able to follow those chords, either with roots or arpeggios or double stops. So it's a very good idea to know for each chord 2 or 3 or 4 different versions of double stops. So a D chord could be a D and an A, and that is the root and the 5th of D. It could be, which is the 3rd and the 5th of A. It could be, which is the 3rd and the root at the top. It could be, which is a F sharp at the top, that's the 3rd and the root below it. So whatever key you're in, you should be able to do that. Let's say we're in B flat, that's the root and the 5th, that's the 3rd and the 5th. Or here, the F and the D, that's the 5th and the root, the 5th and the 3rd rather. So you should be able to do that without really thinking. So if you know that the first 3 chords are F, C and G, then as easily as you say it, you should be able to play those C, F, G or C, F, G. One really handy tip for finding double stop harmonies is knowing what I call the scale of sixths, and for G it's that. So we're thinking of a melody note of C, and we're following it with, on the lower string, a 6th below, which is the same as a 3rd above, but taken an octave down. So I know that that's a C, I know that that's a G, and that's an A minor, etc. So that's a really useful thing to know. Now, rhythmic patterns is a very good thing to be able to come up with on the spot. I'm going to give you this little chord sequence, which I call Rock Light, and you'll see the chord sequence coming up, and I'm going to give you a selection of different rhythms and different double stops. So that's just a selection of the kind of stuff that you can be doing when the singer is singing. Because what he definitely does not want to hear, or she definitely does not want to hear, is you playing, improvising, noodling over the top of the singing. Some fills is okay, but basically you want to be doing something rhythmic and something supportive, but not something that's going to get in the way. I play in several bands where I know that the person who I'm replacing is not there because they play too much, and I am paid by the notes that I am not playing rather than the notes that I am playing. So that's an important lesson. Some people say if you're too busy, then pretty soon you won't be busy at all. And the patterns that you come up with, try and vary them, so that, for example, if you find one nice pattern for the verse, then when you get to the chorus, then do something different, etc. So that you're varying it, but not kind of messing around all the time, not constantly changing, but trying to change at the right kind of place within the song. Now, another alternative idea is not playing choppy things or rhythmic things, but long flowing lines. And here it's good to try and move from one note to an adjacent note as you go to the next chord. Either that or something that has that's close to it and kind of sounds melodic. So I'll try and do that with the chords that we've just heard. So we're starting on the D and we're going to a B minor. And you'll notice there I wasn't going to the roots all the time. I was choosing more or less a random note within the chord, let's say of D, either the root third or fifth, and then moving either up or down as few steps as possible to find something that fits within B minor, and then the same to G and to A. If you go into the roots all the time, it's pretty uninteresting. Now, if you happen to be in the fortunate position of recognising the song that you're playing, or even knowing the song that you're playing, then you have to ask yourself, should I be playing any of the original parts? And this depends a lot on, well, various things. One is, how important was that original part to the song? So, if you're thinking about Brown Eyed Girl, for example, it's got an intro that every single person in the audience knows. And if you don't know it, or know it well enough to play it, then they're going to be missing something. So really well-known intros you should definitely know. So some tunes have iconic fiddle solos or guitar solos or little phrases or intros which you should try and learn. If it's a really widdly guitar solo or a long guitar solo, then absolutely no reason why you should be expected to learn all of that solo. You might just play a few phrases from it. You will get brownie points for some solos. For example, Penny Lane, I played that song for years and years, and when it came to the brass section strange part in the middle, where it goes all out of time, I just kind of made something up that was vaguely like that. And then one day we did a gig where our keyboard player, actually not only did he have a trumpet sound on his keyboard, but he knew note for note that solo. And when he played that, I was just blown away. And I thought, right, I've got to learn that. So I did learn it, and I've played that ever since. So it can be very satisfying playing original parts, but it's quite often absolutely not necessary.
He grew up in a place by the sea, his life was a storm-tossed wave. Spent his days having fun and his nights on the run and his love on the broad highway. Everyone around.
So far we've talked about intros and we've talked about rhythmic backing, but if you are going to do melodic fills or indeed solos, where do you start? If you've come from, let's say, a classical background or maybe from playing traditional Irish tunes or whatever, then you probably haven't got much idea about how you're going to improvise over a sequence. And that's far too big a topic to deal with in detail here, but I will suggest that you learn the pentatonic scale. So for D, which is what this song is in, the D major pentatonic scale is this. So starting on an open string, it's open 1, 2. On the next string, open 1, 3. If you extend it up and down, you get. I do have a video all about the pentatonic scale, but I'll just demonstrate how useful it is in improvising over a sequence like this. So I pretty well ignored the chords. All I played was notes from the pentatonic scale, and it managed to deal pretty well with, it even managed to deal with the E chord simply by missing out one or two of the notes from the pentatonic scale and thinking about what was coming next. But basically, if you're not experienced at improvising, then when it comes to doing fills or solos, the pentatonic scale is great. And just one step beyond that is the major blues scale, which just adds a flattened third. So with D major, that's your blue note. I'll just give a little bit of that, give you a taster. So that gives you an idea of adding the blues element to it. So tip 8, have some tunes ready. What do I mean by this? If you're playing with a singer, the singer has booked you to accompany, but they're probably going to want you to play one or two tunes which you are going to lead. It may be Irish tunes, it may be Scottish tunes, it may be old-timey tunes, it may be they've no idea what they want, but they want you to play something. And if you come along, you've probably played some tunes, you maybe even played a lot of tunes, but if you don't have that ready in your head, what we're going to play in this situation, then you might find yourself stuck. Or you might find yourself suggesting something which has a whole load of chords, which you've never thought about before, which that guitarist is not going to know. So, if you know that, for example, this tune has just two chords, E minor and D, then that's a good bet, because any fool can pick up that, and any guitarist is going to do a reasonable job. There's nothing worse than ploughing through a tune and the guitarist is ploughing at cross purposes with different chords. There's nothing quite so dispiriting. So bring along some tunes in your head which you can play without having to stick the music in front of the guitarist or saying, do you know so and so. Tip 9, have some decent gear. What do I mean by that? If you turn up with your fiddle and you expect to play into a microphone supplied by the guitarist, then you're in big trouble. Playing into a mic in any situation almost is a no-go. It's not going to be loud enough, you're going to be turning it up, it's going to be feeding back, it's going to sound terrible. So don't go to a gig without a decent pickup. Now I've got an LR Baggs, which I think is fantastic. There's lots of other makes. Fishman, for example, and Barker's Berry are two very well-respected makes which I've used in the past. You need a decent lead to connect that to a decent amp. I use an AER, which I think is fantastic. It's light, it's portable, you can plug that into a PA. You may want to have a DI box, which improves your signal, possibly a volume pedal, but I haven't used a volume pedal for many years. So basically my gear is the pickup, the amp, and no DI box. A lead to go from the amp to a mixing desk is a good idea. So bring that stuff along and you're going to have a decent sound. Don't rely on anyone else's gear. If I know there's going to be a PA with monitors, I will still bring my own amp, because you can never be sure if the monitor is going to work properly. It may be that you go on with 5 seconds notice before you start playing and you don't have time to check that that sound is going to work, and then you don't want to have to stop the whole proceedings whilst the monitor person struggles with the sound. So if you have your own amp, independent of what's going on elsewhere, then you know you'll always have a decent sound yourself, no matter what it sounds like out front. And my final piece of advice, tip 10, is don't get in the way. I've already mentioned that there's a big danger of playing too much, especially if you're unsure about it. You may think, well, if you're unsure then don't play, but a lot of people, if they're unsure, they will play just too much. Remember, you're not paid by the note, you're paid by effect, and part of your effect is to make the singer sound good. So don't get in the way, don't play over the singer. A few harmonies, a few long notes, a lot of rhythm, and quite a few silences is a very good thing to have, and people will appreciate it, and they'll come away saying what a great fiddle that was, and the singer will say, yes, I'm going to book you again. See you again soon. Thank you.
Just goes to show that you never can tell. Here we go.